Welcome to Camp Chaos, where we celebrate the wild ride of modern womanhood.
Join us as we dish on motherhood, life's ups and downs, and all things pop culture that we know you want to talk about.
With special guests and expert insights, we're here to empower you through the chaos of everyday life.
Consider this your ultimate escape from the hustle and bustle. And as always, parental guidance suggested.
Camp is now in session.
So with my OB at the time, I was around 7 months with all these issues, and I was so freaking itchy. Like, I'm not kidding you guys. Like, I had rashes. I was so itchy. Like, I didn't sleep at night. I started to like go crazy because, you know, when you don't sleep, you go crazy.
Yes.
And so I Googled, Dr. Google, and it said you could have cholestasis. So I go on like an Instagram thread or whatever, Facebook group, and they're like, this is what happened to me. And so I went in, and what I used to do, which I know is illegal now, so I've deleted them just for legal. I used to record all my doctor appointments because
Is that illegal?
It's illegal. That's why I deleted them all. But I used to want to show my husband because I always felt gaslit, A, and B, I would want to remember what they said so I could like, because I used to get like nervous in doctor appointments and I would just be like, okay. And then I would walk out and be like, what just happened?
I blacked out.
Yeah, like blackout rage, but blackout fear. So I used to record all the appointments, and I recorded the appointment and I said, listen, I think I have cholestasis. Can we do a blood test? Because I am so itchy and I feel like jaundice, like my eyes look yellow. And the nurse practitioner was like, listen, you have anxiety disorder. You have so many issues already because of like the previa. You don't have cholestasis. You would have this, this, and this. And I was like, I know, but I still actually have the notes in my phone because I used to write a note of a script and it's still dated. And I was like, I know in my soul, because like I don't sleep at night. I'm so itchy. Can we just do the test? And she was like, listen, if you're still itchy in a week, but like, I'm just telling you, that's just a side effect of your skin expanding. She was like, where are you mostly itchy? I was like, my stomach. So I texted Ashley Waller, you know Ashley?
Yeah.
And I was going to meet her at Zinc for breakfast. And I was like, I feel gaslit because like I just left the doctor and I'm so itchy. And so she met me at Zinc and she called her OB, Dr. Illick, who I think is like an earth angel.
He is. Oh my gosh.
I think he's the best OB. So she was like, listen, and she has his cell and calls him. And I was like, you're so fancy. Like,
yeah.
What? And so he was like, come in and do a blood lab and we'll just check for your own peace of mind. Cause I was like, I'm really nervous. And this is already such a like high risk pregnancy. And like, I'm the person with a Doppler. Like, I feel like too. I'm like so stressed. Sorry, this is such a long story. And so long story long. I go in to see him. He does the blood draw. He's so loving and nurturing.
Is he not the best? You go there and you're like,
it's almost like where you want to cry. Like it's like you've been with the asshole boyfriend and you're like, this is love. And then you meet the nice boyfriend and you're like, oh my gosh, like
this is true love.
I was in the lobster in the pot of water. So he does the test. He's like, just wait here. We're going to expedite your results. He calls me on my cell 3 hours later. He's like, go to Hoag right now. You have advanced cholestasis. Your daughter is like in the heart rate's not normal. Your labs are not normal. You're like going septic. Like, what the fuck? So I go to Hoag. They like strap me in. They're like, we might have to induce labor. What the fuck?
And you're an antepartum pregnant.
Yeah. So I go in. They do all these tests. I'm there all night. I'm getting like antibiotic IVs because basically cholestasis, again, I'm not well versed on this one. Sorry. But it's like your liver's not properly like filtering out everything. So he comes in. So I call my OB that I was seeing at the time. And I was like, I just want to let you know, I'm so hurt and offended because this was my own ego really needing the validation. I was like, I told you guys I
gave you the diagnosis. I gave you the diagnosis saying this is what I have.
I was like, I'm so hurt. Like, I'm so hurt for being gaslit. And like, I was like crying. And they were like, well, we're sorry you feel that way. You know, there's not much we can do. At least you're there now. And I was like, I've never even said this to a doctor. I was like, you're fired. I stayed. So I got to go home.
Okay.
I did the testing for another week and then I had to be induced because.
So how early was your baby?
She was like 7.5 months.
Okay. Well, early.
What is it? I needed to learn the weeks.
Like 34 weeks?
Yeah, that's
34.5 weeks.
Zane was born at 34 too.
And then Dr. Illick was like a rock star. Like I labored for 4 days and he like advocated for me every step of the way. He would come in at lunch and this is a new doctor. Like, and I'm riddled with anxiety and psychopath. And I hemorrhaged like you. And he was there like holding my hand. Like,
did you do a blood transfusion?
Yeah. And he was screaming at the nurses because like he was just like the best advocate. If anyone ever needs an OB, like see Dr. Illick.
Dr. Illick is
he's like Papa Smurf. Like,
I have a crush on him of how much I love him.
Me too, but like not in a weird way.
Not in a weird way. My sister was in the room when I delivered Zoe, and she's like, I want to switch to him, but I can't after seeing him in his scrubs, like performing like that. She's like, he was like
sexual
Clark Kent, 100%. But you just feel this level, I think, as a woman and a mother to be of safety. Like when I was in that OR with him, I'd say, Dr. Illick, am I okay? Am I okay? And he would just like touch like he wouldn't say you're okay because I don't think he knew if I was okay. But it was like, I'm here and you're going to like.
Yeah, it's and feeling I was safe.
Yes.
And like, that's all you want to feel, right? As a woman, like we're inherently like designed to want to feel safe. And I think to actually feel safe with a physician is something I haven't even felt in my lifetime. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was so emotional. Like I'm still emotional when I see this man.
Same.
He's like,
I saw him recently and he said to me after, I said, if I was your wife, would you let me deliver again? And he said, no. And then I saw him recently and he said, I think about your birth all the time. And I'm like, well, me too. And thank you. But I'm like, he makes me cry when I
cry when I see him too. Yeah. I'm like trying to
emotional, but he said, I think you can do it again. And we would just control. And it's like, I trust this man. Like whatever you say.
And I think that's going back to systems, like part of such a screwed up system. Like the fact that I cry when I tell people about Dr. Illick making me feel safe shows how messed up our system is, because we should all feel safe as women with our doctor or physician when bringing life into this world. And that's not the reality. A lot of like people, we talk about traumatic birth. Like, yeah, I had a traumatic birth, but I don't even use the word because it was so beautiful, because I felt so safe and I was like covered in care.
Yeah.
And so like all those other things really did kind of melt away from me. It's not to say they didn't happen, but like some people I know have this thing and this hemorrhage and this, emergency C-section. Like, birth is a trauma, just giving birth.
Yeah.
Period.
Even when it goes,
but they don't have that safety in their physician, and they feel, that judgment. It's like no one wants to feel judged giving birth. Right. So I'm so thankful. Like Ashley Waller, if you ever listen to this, I love you so much.
Oh my God, I love that she was the connection with him for you too.
Yeah, me too. And I just like, it was like a God wink, because he is just like an angel.
So being somebody that is so aware of your own mental health and your own mental, awareness, I think after baby is just so much different than pre, like that rush of hormones that you get, but like you're already so aware of like everything that's happened in your life. How did you deal with postpartum? Like, were you like, I've got this, I feel good? Or were you like, how did you honor yourself after a baby?
Surprisingly, I had the best postpartum. Like I had a really bad period in my personal life with my marriage, but my marriage coming to an end, but not anything to do with my postpartum or my mental health. I actually felt very mentally strong. And I know that's like probably sadistic, but something about me felt so like, oh my God, I am finally in the only role I was meant to have on this planet. Oh. Like, I feel like some people just have I call it the mama gene. Like, I know you have it because I know you so well, and I've only met you once prior to this, but like, it's just like, I have that. Like, I know I was put on this earth to protect someone else. And like, I think it's so cool now with my own mental health, because a lot of things come out when you have a baby that's just natural of your own upbringing, and like, oh, I deserve this. I know we discussed this, but I feel so blessed. Like I get to look through her eyes and I kind of reparent myself. Like if anyone treats me with disrespect, I'm like, how would I let them treat my little cocoa bean? Like they're not gonna even come close to her. So like even with friendships, it's like I'm not triggered or angry. I'm just like, we have no tolerance for that in our home. In my whole life, I did.
My mom always says, and my mom had a pretty traumatic childhood. Her mom had her at 18 and then was married. My grandma was married 7 different times and shipped her. So she's had her story to tell. But she always would say to me, like, when I had kids, I got to redo my childhood. Yeah. And I didn't get it until having kids. And I'm like, I think I had a very blessed childhood and I'm very fortunate. But it's like you get to do these things with your children that are like just so cool, of like, it brings you back to that little inner child in you.
Well, and it's like healing. And there, of course, are days, but I think there's always a bottom line decision. Again, I'll use the word respond, because you have to hear this something like 3 times before it sticks. That's like why commercials replay. Yeah. But like, you get to kind of choose like, okay, if I did a really crappy job this day, I get to respond differently tomorrow. And I get to, pick and choose where I can take things I didn't like about myself, and you can simply make a decision to change them. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like that about myself, that I was so needy for love, that maybe I chose the wrong partners or the wrong friendships, but I get to change it now for her. So it's like a beautiful thing to just kind of see our wrongdoings and tweak them a little bit for our kids.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit. You said you had 7 autoimmune
Yeah.
and now you have none.
This is true for now. None on blood work.
So how did you go about healing that? Because that's what I'm like kind of learning about. Because of course, when I went to my doctor and they said, you know, oh, postpartum, like let's test for autoimmune, which I did not so far. I've tested negative, but I've been taking a deep dive into autoimmune now. And it's like the system, back to your, like you have to fix the system.
I know. Everyone's like, shut the hell up.
No, but it's true. So how did you heal?
Well, so usually I bring this giant black folder, but everyone makes fun of me because I am stuck in the 90s. So I write everything. Like I need a paper calendar and a paper folder and like highlighters and like bubble pins. But everyone is different, unfortunately. I would say if you are a woman struggling specifically with, you know, autoimmune disease when it comes to your cortisol or your hormones, something like Hashimoto's or thyroid issue or, you know, progesterone issue, PCOS, endo, that's more of my personal expertise. I would definitely, first and foremost, take your hormones into account, see a hormone specialist. And these things are so frustrating to push on people because they're expensive. It's like, it's expensive to heal yourself. It's not expensive to go to a doctor because it's covered by insurance, God willing, if you have it, which also should not be a luxury. Our society is so screwed up. But dive into your hormones first and foremost. I see an incredible, like I'm seeing him today. He is an earth angel doctor. His name is Dr. Nick Deliberato. I always butcher his last name. He is in Irvine, like by the Spectrum. He will do...
For your hormones?
He's a functional medicine doctor, but he will dive into any lab. He is so passionate about his patients and so knowledgeable. He's been on my podcast. So if you go see him, I believe it's like $300 or $400, and he will send the phlebotomist to your house, which is $60. I know it adds up, so I don't want to, pretend it doesn't add up. But they'll do the blood draw in your home. If you're a kid, you have kids, or you're working full time, and I have the email on my phone. He will email you a full panel of every single lab, what's wrong with what, every hormone marker, your progesterone, your cortisol, and what he can do to try and help you and what supplements you should be taking. So that's kind of like a first step. I know it's not maybe affordable, but it's a first step if you're really looking to dive into the deeper thing behind your health. Like we did this lab recently. I do labs every 3 months because of the health issues I've had. But the last one we did, my cardiovascular, I had a marker that was like really, really corrupt for heart health. And I'm like, what?
Oh, gosh.
So I've just been researching that now more deep. But that's where I would start. If you can't see him, there's something online you can order called the Dutch test. Yeah. It's a dried urine sample.
It's also expensive though, right? Isn't it a few $100s?
It's hard because the module designed to heal things shouldn't be expensive. Mm-hmm. And I always want to, like on my Instagram, I have a tab called like wellness, and I post every test I do, and I always post the price because it's like, it's so screwed up. It's so screwed up. It costs money. Like, to know about your freaking hormones.
Right. Let me ask you this. So like hormones to me control everything. And I know this from going through IVF and IUIs and then postpartum. But like me personally speaking, I know that my hormones are so jacked that my doctor, not Dr. Illick, another doctor, and it's functional medicine, said at this point of where you are, we need to put you on birth control just to stop bleeding. Like I've had that in my life. But I tried progesterone at night. Like, do you do actual hormone replacement therapy, or do you do it with supplements? I've been through that.
I did that. I had the bleeding for months at a time. I did the progesterone. I did the cream. I did the pills. I did the pellets.
Okay, well, same. So where do we fix ourselves? I know no two bodies are the same, but we go to the same doctor and we have the same problem.
With fall around the corner, we're so thrilled to hear from one of our favorite sponsors, Jenny Kane. As the experts in classic, elevated wardrobe essentials, especially iconic and super luxe sweaters, Jenny Kane is a California brand through and through, and their staples make getting dressed effortless.
Their sweaters are the quintessential must-have item. I'm eagerly stocking up on their transitional knits and fall-ready basics like the cashmere cocoon cardigan. Tay and I just got ours, and you're going to see us all over wearing them.
The Cocoon is the perfect cardigan. It's oversized, super soft, and goes with everything. I get compliments every time I wear mine, and they're so comfortable. I can truly live in it all year long.
Plus, everything in their collection is designed so intentionally that you can style pieces together without a second thought. And let me tell you, as a mom, I have no time to think about my wardrobe. I love to pair their sweaters with everything from classic denim to a simple dress and even athleisure for a look that's effortless and so easily put together.
Find your new uniform at JennyKane.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code CampChaos15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first Jenny Kane order. JennyKayne.com. Promo code CampChaos15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Embrace your cozy aesthetic with Jenny Kane.
Remember when you could fall asleep in your makeup and still wake up glowing? Well, for us moms, those days are long over. If you're noticing changes in your skin's tone and texture, maybe you're like me, seeing a few fine lines and wrinkles, you are not alone. But here's the good news. Today's sponsor, OneSkin, has developed a skincare line that targets these changes where they start, your cells. OneSkin's topical supplements are powered by their proprietary peptide OS1, scientifically proven to target the dysfunctional senescent cells that start to accumulate around age 30.
These are the cells that make skin dull, dry, and more prone to lines and wrinkles. Plus, all of OneSkin's products for the face and body, including their new mineral sunscreen, are backed by lab and clinical studies and more than 8,000 five-star reviews.
For a limited time, you can try OneSkin for 15% off using the code CampChaos when you check out at oneskin.co. Start your new scientifically proven skincare routine today with OneSkin.
Treating the symptoms rather than the root cause of aging has long been the norm. Most skincare available on the market is designed to provide a temporary reduction in visible signs of aging, addressing just the surface symptoms of an underlying decline in skin health.
OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code CampChaos at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code CampChaos. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support your show and tell them we sent you.
So, but with hormones, I think it's getting on the right supplementation, getting on the right kind of protocol for inflammation, because there's a reason, right? Like there's a reason if you have PCOS and you have like hair on your body, it could be an adrenal gland thing. Like doing these like super invasive labs will give you a deeper dive into that. But there's always, I always say with any wellness thing, we're kind of taught like, okay, there's the door, but there's always like
there's so many different
20
exits.
windows.
Yeah.
And so to have like that vision of that one door is like, just know there's always someone else who can do it better. And like, I know, trust me, I know, I don't know, but I empathize and know, like if you have like 3 jobs and you're like, I'm not going to go spend like $400 to go see a second doctor and get a second opinion, but there is a huge benefit in more than one opinion. And I think as women, like when we do our hair, for example, like if you're a blonde, like you're going to have to see a bunch of hairstylists before you find your like blonde hairstylist. And like, or with your nails, like, you know, you like your nail tech, like maybe. And I think it's so easy with our health to be like, okay, I just paid this guy $1,000 and this is what he says to do, so I'm just going to do it. But like, I think getting more than one opinion, like I'm very against birth control. This is just my own personal belief system. I personally think there is no reason we should be prescribing anyone birth control. And I know, listen, there's always the exception. So please don't come for me if you're like, well, I had this and now I need to take it. Aside from the side effects, aside from the mental, you know, aspect of what it can do to your hormones, your brain health, the long-term case studies on what it can do to our bones, our bone density, us as women, we are not taught in school how to like regulate our hormones or how to like follow our periods. You get your period when you're ovulating. There are ways to track this. And there are ways where we can give men birth control if, you know, we're trying to prevent pregnancy. We should not be the ones having to poison ourselves.
With carcinogens,
because men don't want to, you know, do the work. But I think going in and diving into somebody like Dr. Nick is like super beneficial. Like he has me on a crazy regime, but I don't have. It's working
though.
Well,
right?
and
like,
I'm not,
I would
you
do
know,
something crazy if it worked.
I feel like I got my period today. I feel a little puffy and like my boobs look big, but I'm not like hemorrhaging where we have to stop. Like I'm not, you know, like feeling this crazy out of mind thing I used to get with my PMS. Like I used to get crazy PMS and I was like, okay, I'm like actually a crazy person. And then I would get my period and I'd be like, oh, that's not normal. It's like you can watch the TikToks
but
on
everybody
it.
normalizes
Yeah,
it.
you're like, it's me. But that's not normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal. So I think just getting, more than one opinion holds value. I know it's hard to do. It's like anything.
So postpartum, so happy it was good for you because a lot of women it's not.
I know.
Obviously you had stuff going on in your personal life that drug you down in a different way. How
Yeah.
did you take care of your mental health through that? Are you still?
That saying, those who can't do teach. I just let it be. I just rode that wave.
Yeah.
There was no way for me to subside what I was going through mentally other than just like letting it pass, like the waves got to crash. And I feel really good about it now.
Good.
Well, you're like a huge advocate for mental health. It seems like it's kind of like your life mission now. You have your podcast. Why is that so important to you? And like, what do you try to teach other people about mental health?
I know I always say women. I think I'm just trying to teach women the normalization of how what we go through as women like impacts us on a visceral level, and how I know not all women, but most society normalizes things for us that are not right and not fair. Like I think men and women have roles. So like,
yeah,
but just like on a level of just like humanity, when we do case studies for things with women, they're underfunded. They're usually studied on men, like the seatbelt. This is a great example. More women die in car accidents because the seatbelt was initially tested on men.
It was?
Yeah. So like it actually, like you're more likely to like break your back or die. But like things with cancer research, like things with
it's all funded by men for men. We're the afterthought.
And we're in a society designed where as little girls, we're taught to conform to this body idealistic, but then when you reach the body idealistic, you're bad because it's unrealistic. Like I feel like the Barbie movie, but it's like my thing with trauma is every single woman, regardless if they want to admit it or not, or maybe you're the fairy godmother exception, experiences trauma, period. And childbirth is a trauma, divorce is a trauma, somebody holding financial means over your head, a spouse, that's financial abuse, that's a trauma. Losing a parent is a trauma. And guess what? That's inevitable. Losing a friend to an illness, going through addiction, having a child with an illness. I have a child with a genetic disease. That's a trauma. I might handle it with finesse, still a trauma. Being the victim of a sexual abuse. 1 in 3 women, and this is just a statistic, keep in mind, like we're not going and interviewing communities with lower incomes, being a victim of medical abuse. So all of these things under this umbrella that happen to us, not to say they don't happen to men, I just speak to women, cause neurological changes and physical changes in our body and our mental health. And then we're taught to exist and be the best moms and go through the day and be the best friends and show up to dinner. And if you don't show up, you're a bad friend because you're letting your friend down, but then, you resent the friend. And I think if we all came together, which I know wishful thinking, but as women, and we started normalizing just the discussions around CPTSD, which is like my huge thing.
Remind me what the C is in CP.
Complex. So PTSD, I'll just like give the breakdown in the middle of my Barbie speech. I didn't mean to give like a Barbie movie dialogue.
I love the Barbie
That's
movie.
what I was looking for.
Like I literally was like, I sound like I'm trying to like get the Barbie movie Oscar like on my rant with my 4 coffees deep. But so PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. So like, for instance, I was a victim of a kidnapping. That's going to cause PTSD. If you're a veteran of war, if you were in 9/11, if you see a crazy crime, it's a one-off thing that completely changes your brain chemistry because that's how we're wired. And you can have reactions to sleeping at night. You can have suicidal ideology. You can have reactions to small things. You don't really know when it'll come up. For me, it's fireworks. Like, I just hate fireworks. If I hear them, I freak out. It's my PTSD. Like, I'm not myself. That like primal brain takes over and I'm a weirdo. So 4th of July is not great for me. But CPTSD, which nobody knows about because it's like one of these things that's under discussed, is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And like the dictionary definition, not verbatim, but it's just any long-term subjection to something that makes you feel like inherently unsafe, unseen, unwell. It's you could have had a loved one with cancer and for 6 months you sat with them. You could have a spouse that cheated on you and you had to go through these notions. You could have a spouse that financially withholds from you and you've learned how to exist in that realm. You can have
So it's like dealing with trauma without you even knowing, oh, this is a traumatic experience. It's just happening in the
it's
background
any
of your life.
long-term experience where you are not in a healthy environment.
Yeah.
And it's not to say we're all victims of this crazy trauma. It's just to acknowledge that any long-term experience like this causes neurological changes. This is a fact. So as women, being pregnant causes a neurological change, but we can see it physically on their body. Or having cancer, we give people a lot of grace because it causes all, and obviously you're sick. We give a lot of empathy, but we don't give a lot of empathy to women like myself going through a divorce. I don't get a lot of empathy because it's just a normal thing in society. Like the divorce rate in Orange County is like 80%. PTSD is just any long-term feeling or discomfort, and it will still change your brain. It will change your amygdala. It will change your hippocampus. This is all proven through clinicals. It's proven through brain scans. I've done a few, and it will ultimately change your health and it will change your body. It will change, you're more likely to have disease. That's why I always say do the ACE, the childhood adverse experience test. I have 9 out of 10. So
it's called the Adverse Child Experience Test.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially it's 10
and
questions.
How do you take that?
You could take it online, but it's 10 questions. I think one is like, were your parents divorced? Did a parent struggle with substance abuse? Were you ever hit or something? I can't recall. I don't want to misquote, but the higher your ACE score, clinically proven, the more likely you are to have some type of illness, disease, and the more likely you are to lose years off your life. So like where mine is at is like I'm supposed to die 20 years sooner. So I'm trying to reverse that with knowledge.
Reverse that, yeah.
Well, and you can. I don't believe it to be fact. It's just a study. But
and it's like you have this information. Now what are you going to do with it? And you're going to heal
but you
yourself.
could also study for an exam and disagree with the case or the content. So I think it's just important as women to normalize our own healing and our own system and our own, grace we give one another and just our own knowledge on ourselves. It's okay to give yourself so much grace when you are a mom and you don't feel well, and to say, like, really look into it and say, could I be struggling with this? Could this be something from when I was young and this happened? And like, I always give this example when I speak. So this is just like a jumbled story of stories I've told. But when I posted on Instagram, I was kidnapped. I never shared it because I was really embarrassed because like in my family, we never shared anything bad. So I'm the black sheep. Like now I tell all these stories with permission, but I still am the black sheep with my direct family, like my parents. And I posted it in COVID because I was doing so much work with human trafficking, and a lot of the comments I was getting were like, this is all a scam, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, well, I was actually a victim of this. So I posted a video, and like the hate comments were there. Don't get me wrong. But they're there if you do nothing, right? It's better to do something and help someone than do nothing and still like, why isn't she doing anything? So I always say I received, and I'm not an influencer and I'm not a big to do on social media, thousands, like I still have some I haven't opened, I feel so bad, of messages from only women with stories, like just storytelling. Because I told my story, like I could open it up right now, but I would like cry. But like so many women, like I literally am so sick. I have like lupus. And like when I was 8, my uncle would rape me. And like I never told my husband, and I'm so embarrassed, and like I'm so unwell. And like, but like that story in different verbiage thousands of times. And so like I would read them and I felt honored that people felt safe to share with me, and I tried my best to reply to them. But then I'm like a little pissed off. Like, why are we raised to feel that? Like, why are we raised if someone tells their story or tells it for too long, they're a victim? Like, I'm not a victim of this experience. It's just part of my story. So I give it, for context. But like, we shouldn't villainize one another for telling our story and connecting. And I think when we can connect on how to change this system, like we'll all grow and we'll all be more healthy for it. We'll all be better parents for it. Like the next generation will have more empathy.
Your little Coco is so lucky that you've done all this hard work, right?
Yeah.
She hates me. When she's mad, I go, take a deep breath. And she goes,
take a belly breath. But you know, it's wild. Like, imagine what she would have been born into if you didn't go through this healing journey and if you didn't
I think
have
I
this
would have
awareness.
just repeated the cycle.
Exactly. She would have been the same
You
of
know?
what your mom saw with her mom.
Yeah.
Would have been
And
the
I
same.
think also like cycles all end with someone. It's really hard to be a cycle breaker. So like if you're a cycle breaker, I'm so sorry for you because there's pushback. But it's the same as a system.
Yeah.
You know, if you try and push back against a system and people's identity is built off of it, of course they're going to be upset. But
Yeah.
it's okay to just take baby steps to better learn about, you know, the word trauma is such a buzzword right now, and the word narcissist. Like, I'll also look on TikTok and I'm like, oh God, because they're so misused. But it's okay to look into trauma and really how it affects us.
But I also think that they're all around us constantly. So it's just more awareness.
Yeah, and it's overused. But I think learning, you know, the adequate way to use them and how it does impact us. And, you know, if you are struggling with something like infertility, I know I did. It's so triggering, right? Unsolicited advice. But if you research trauma and correlation to infertility, it exists because there are scientific studies, there are case studies. And so knowing that, maybe you can give yourself a little more grace and space to heal and say, you know, like, how is this impacting me? And self-validate.
Yeah. So post-divorce, where's Lacy now? How are you? How's your love life? How's your
I'm
personal
fine.
life?
I'm
You're
dating.
good?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share who you're dating?
Well, every time I go on a date, there's like a freaking Instagram picture. And
Is
I'm
there
like,
really? I love that.
I'm like dragged through the mud for my parents. So thank you. If I could get this soundbite, actually,
yeah.
I want to thank all the women that saw a photo of me on Instagram and dragged me for my appearance. It is not kind. And I clicked a few of the pages because my ego like couldn't help myself. You know, you're like, and I was like, these are all moms with little baby kiddos. And so we should be nicer to women because we never know what battles other women are fighting.
Isn't it funny that those people that are in your DMs, like putting you down or saying things about you, they have like a Bible verse in their bio too?
All of them did.
Yeah.
No, none are in my DMs, actually. They're just like the public comments.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Well, are you happy?
I am happy. And I think happiness comes from within. I don't really...
You didn't look for a partner to find happiness.
Even in my marriage, though, like I don't associate happiness with a partner. I think happiness comes from within. I think validation comes from within. We can beg people to see us or apologize to us for doing us wrong or, you know, see our point of view. I think that's, it's our ego. It's part of us built to survive. That's why we have an ego. But I really think happiness comes from like within. I'm so happy with just like feeling at peace. Yeah. To me, the definition of happiness is feeling safe.
Yeah. That's
like
a big word.
If you go to sleep at night and you feel safe, and of course I have my days. I have my days where I'm stressed about like my stupid flooding house. I have a financial stress or stressed about my child because she's this genetic thing. But I kind of give it to God, and I really do feel like I feel so safe.
God will figure it out for me.
Yeah, and I think all those external things are like worldly, and we don't really have control. So I know I certainly don't have control of a man. So
girl,
I don't attribute happiness.
No one in this room does. Yeah,
no,
good for you.
It's amazing that you've like healed yourself. But what I find even more amazing, and I'm like, it's kind of weird that I'm saying this, is that you're so informed about this stuff.
Like, she's very informed.
Like I feel like
you don't just like spew shit. Like you know what you're talking
you
about.
are so
well, and that's my
informed.
own that's my own insecurity and ego, because I used to go and speak on court panels on victim advocate rights, and I used to show up and like I get it, like I want to be in on the joke, like I'm like this blonde girl, like I'm like Elle Woods, and I'm like order,
yeah,
and like it's a room full of women who are victims of a crime, and like I'm just telling them like, because I had testified really articulately, not so articulate today. So the DA asked me to speak on these panels, and
that's a really big honor.
Yeah, it was super thoughtful, but I was like, F this, like I'm a moron. And I worked in at the time, like I literally was like, I'm Elle Woods. And so I really learned to study how things work and how statistics work versus saying my opinion, because my opinion is not based on fact, and what I've experienced is not based on anyone else's reality except my own. And so I just really try hard to research stats, especially when it comes to illness or like cancer. Like Joe was saying, the pediatric cancer stats, and I was like I have those down because I don't ever want to give anyone false information.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think
And you're passionate about talking about it. You want to spit the truth.
Yeah. And I think with the privilege of having anyone listen to my voice, or I think it's a privilege to have anyone listen to what I say and even feel moved by 2% of it, right? But I feel like with any privilege comes responsibility of being, articulate in what I say and not just spewing BS.
Yeah.
That's why I think we shouldn't give politicians platforms.
100%.
Or I do see that is my trigger though, because it's still, I don't know if it's my wound or my insecurity because I'm not a doctor or something, because, our triggers are definitely our own wounds. But I see a lot of women on social media and they'll be talking about mental health or supplements. And I'm like, this is not accurate. I want to comment it and say, don't take this supplement because this girl was paid $100 to take this gummy bear.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
But then I shut myself up because I'm like, that's my trigger. That's my own ego and my own unhealed part of myself.
But you are so informed and such a great resource for women to look to about all of these things that we should be looking at. This should be very normal that we take a deep dive on ourselves. So just share where everyone can find you and where you talk about all this stuff.
You can find me at Lacy OC because that's my alter ego. And then I have a foundation, Shame to Sparkle, which is in the name, Shame to Sparkle. And it's, there are a lot of resources there for mental health advocacy. We didn't even talk about ketamine, but I have a partnership with ketamine clinics. And I think it's a huge proponent if you're trying to heal depression, anxiety, trauma. I list the case studies, so I won't bore you guys with the statistics right now because we're winding up, but they're 90% more effective than any long-term SSRIs, which is
ketamine.
Ketamine therapy.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow.
And then my podcast and all the socials are also Shame to Sparkle.
I love the name.
I know.
I love the name too. I was going to do mental health resources.
No, it's Shame to Sparkle.
And then I was
brand.
no, and then I will remember I got this book deal and the book agent came in with this publicist, it's a team. And they were like, we need new headshots. We need you to do this. You got to tone it down. Why do you want to do this? And I was like, because that's just my personality. Even if tomorrow I woke up somewhere else with a completely different life, I still just love glitter and sparkle and bullshit because that's me. I put
you can't
sparkles.
get rid of that. Yeah.
It's just my
who
thing.
I am to my core.
And I think, a lot of us are made to feel shame, and that's an epidemic. We shouldn't feel shame for being who we are.
Yeah.
No.
Sparkle.
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 We'll leave you with that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
here
guys
with
for
us.
having
This was
me.
great.
I'm so excited.
Thanks for tuning in to Camp Chaos. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our show. Connect with us on social media at Camp Chaos Podcast. Until next time, campers.